Welcome back. The Biden administration is now reportedly weighing more limits on China's access to chips needed for artificial intelligence. Bloomberg writes this: the measures being discussed would limit China's ability to use a cutting-edge chip architecture known as Gate-All-Around, or GAA. GAA promises to make semiconductors even more powerful and is currently being introduced by chip makers. Semiconductor companies such as NVIDIA and Intel are looking to start mass production of chips with GAA design within the next year. Joining me right now is One Shared World founder, former National Security Council, State Department and United Nations official, and former World Health Organization committee member, expert committee member, Jamie Metzl. He's the author of the new book, Superconvergence, out right now. Jamie, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's always my great pleasure, Maria.
Congratulations on the book, and we're going to get to the book in a moment. But I'm going to get your take, because you've been so adamant about, look, we need an investigation into the origins of COVID. Yeah. You've been pushing back on the Communist Party of China, which is really, thank you for the courage on that. We still haven't gotten the investigation that we need. But now the administration is trying to limit this access to chips. Your reaction?
I think it's really important. There was a time when we thought, well, globalization is going to bring everybody together. We have open economy, free trade, things that you and I have advocated for a long time. But China has taken advantage of that openness. They're trying to use our openness against us. And so the last thing that we should be doing is empowering China to fight us, giving them access to chips that are going into Russian weapons that are killing people in Ukraine. So we must pull back. And chips are the way station to the future of our economies. And so we really need stronger controls.
How much infiltration do you think there has been by the Chinese Communist Party in America? I mean, look, the NDAA tried to do exactly what the Biden administration is talking about by banning several Chinese companies from putting their networking equipment in U.S. But there's already so much embedded in our businesses and in our economy. And that's what they didn't do. They should have actually pulled it all out, but that would have been an expensive endeavor.
Yeah, it's just massive infiltration. I mean, China is having cyber attacks on our critical infrastructure all the time. There's sleeper technologies in our power stations, really everywhere. We've had this philosophy of openness, and China has taken advantage of that. And unfortunately, it's tragic. This new Cold War is emerging, largely because of China's behavior, and we need to change our mindset. And that also means that our companies, who have just been very comfortable, and it's maybe been good for a lot of companies to have these supply chains weaving through China, now need to recognize that any supply chain going through China is a risk.
I would say there were enablers during World War II as well, by the way. I'm sorry. But, you know, corporations need to understand national security issues as well. Let's talk about the book. I don't know who to be more afraid of, the Communist Party of China or AI. Your new book, Superconvergence, How the Genetics, Biotech, and AI Revolutions Will Transform Our Lives, Work, and World. It is out now at your book signing last night. You said that for the first time, and this struck me because I was listening to your remarks real closely, you said for the first time, the human race has done what no one thought could be done, and that is recreate life.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
So life has existed on this planet for about 3.8 billion years. Our one species suddenly has these two superpowers. It's almost like some might call it godlike superpowers to create novel intelligence. So AI, it's not human intelligence, it's this new thing that we're creating, and to recreate life. We can't create life from scratch, but we can manipulate existing life to do all kinds of things. And it's scary, and it's also exciting. I mean, so there's all kinds of treatments for cancers, new ways of thinking about healthcare, doing agriculture better with more productivity, getting new industrial materials like spider silk, synthetic spider silk that's stronger than Kevlar and stretchier than elastic, data storage. There's so many great stories. But there are really significant dangers, and whether it's the dangers of AI, the dangers of crashing ecosystems, as you mentioned, COVID-19, the vaccines were really great models of what we can do with science, but the pandemic itself is very likely resulting from a research-related incident in Wuhan. So that also shows what some of these dangers. And so because there are dangers and opportunities, the question is, what can we do now to build the best possible future.
What industries do you think will be most affected by AI? Is it healthcare and biotech? Is that the most important?
I don't think it's just that. So if I were to ask you, Maria, how did electricity influence your life today? You couldn't answer it. It's in your clothes, it's in our haircuts, it's in your glasses, it's in this camera, it's everywhere. And so it's not, when people think about AI, they think, oh, it's like I'm going to go to ChatGPT and I'm going to ask it a question. But it's going to be woven into everything. So every company is going to have to change. And so with every company, every person, your life is going to change. And that's why the onus is on all of us to really learn what's coming, what's at stake, what's my role, both to prepare myself and to play a role in our greater societies. And that's why I've written the book.
I think it's such an important book, particularly now when people are trying to understand how AI is going to affect their lives. I was speaking to Marcelo Clar recently, who's also incredibly smart about this, and he invests around it. And he told me he thinks we're going to live until 150 years old because our bodies will become like a car. We'll just replace stuff. Get a new kidney after 50 years. Get a new liver after 60 years. Whatever. Is that what you think? And he says it's all because of AI.
So
I know this is a small little sliver
it's really
of what you're talking about.
I'm deeply involved in that world. My last book, Hacking Darwin, was largely about that. As a matter of fact, just after our interview today, I'm flying to Boston for an event at the MIT Museum where we're going to be talking about these issues. So I don't know whether we're going to live to 150 or not, but I certainly think that we're going to change our healthcare systems from our current world of generalized healthcare based on population averages to the new world of precision healthcare. Which is based on treating you or anybody based on who they are as an individual, understanding your own biology. But when we have billions of people, and we have their whole sequence genomes and all of their data, that's the formula for all of these complex, understanding these complex patterns is the more high quality data, the more computing power, the stronger algorithms, the better we're going to be to see patterns. And so we're going to realize that our lives and our healthcare exist within a range of possibility. And so the goal isn't going to be wait until you have a symptom to have healthcare. It's going to be early on in life to say, hey, what can you do to maximize your health, to optimize your health? So we're going to have those kinds of shifts based on a deeper understanding of humans, by humans, of patterns. But that's not just in healthcare. That same formula is going to apply to business and really everything.
And I'm glad you mentioned the mapping of the genome, because that's really when I started getting interested in this. And that, amazingly, that's about 25 years ago already, right? I mean, when we mapped the whole genome, what we didn't map was the brain. And that's what I want to ask you about, because yes, we mapped the genome, we figured out smoking causes cancer, and eating poorly causes heart disease and all this stuff. We started changing our, habits and getting ahead of disease. What are we doing in terms of the mind? We are seeing some Alzheimer's breakthroughs, right?
Right, we are. Very early stages. We know very little about how people's brains function relative to the complexity of our brains. But the amazing thing now is that our tools and capabilities are becoming much more sophisticated, and frankly, our brains are just the same level of sophistication as they've been for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. So we're getting better and better. So we are going to need to map out the brain to get a better understanding of how our brains function. But as we do, increasingly, we're going to be able to do interventions better. So you mentioned Alzheimer's. There's some halting progress towards treating Alzheimer's. It always seems like it's a start and a stop. A better understanding just about how thought processes work. And we're going to just need to keep pushing forward. But now we have these incredible tools, superpowers, that are going to allow us to understand our brains, our bodies, and the world in new ways.
I love it. And this book is so important on the heels of your other incredibly important book, Hacking Darwin. It's really important, and we appreciate you talking about this. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan wrote a letter to Anthony Fauci last Friday. He's demanding he appear before the committee, the Judiciary Committee, and the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government for an interview about his involvement in the White House's alleged censorship during the pandemic. Look, we all know what the White House was doing. They were working with social media to tell social media to take down certain posts. God forbid you said anything about the vaccine. God forbid you said anything about COVID, unleashed from the lab. You got taken out on social media. Jordan is slamming Fauci's testimony during a House hearing last week, writing that Fauci testified he, quote, kept an open mind. I'm sorry, I don't remember him keeping an open mind, Jamie, about the lab leak theory and did not play a part in the push to downplay the lab leak theory. Jordan said this is all false on its face. Meanwhile, a New York Times columnist is now admitting in an X post that, quote, many of us in the journalistic and public health worlds were too dismissive of the possibility of the COVID lab leak theory. Jamie, we had Tom Cotton on my show in February of 2020. He was very straightforward, and he said this came from a lab leak. China has still refused to have any investigation, and you've been pushing for it. You said that from day one. You want an investigation.
Yeah.
And you weren't trying to be political.
I'm a Democrat.
You're a Democrat. You just wanted to know how this started so that it wouldn't happen again.
We all should be on the same side. Everybody in America, everyone in the United States government, frankly, everybody in China. We just lived through a pandemic that, according to The Economist, led to 27 million excess deaths. If we don't get to the bottom of what went wrong, we're going to be setting ourselves up for an even worse pandemic, especially in this new age of synthetic biology, where it's possible to imagine people cooking up really terrible pathogens that could kill millions, billions of people. China has done everything possible to prevent the kind of investigation that we need. But certainly here in the United States, under both the Trump and the Biden administrations, we haven't pushed hard enough. We haven't made this a priority. I'm a commissioner for the Heritage Foundation Commission on China and COVID-19. Next month, we're going to be releasing our report. I can't tell you what it's going to say yet, but it's going to be a really big deal saying, hey, here's how we can hold China accountable. But we also need to look at ourselves, and we need to do it without ideological blinders, without tribalism, to say what went wrong. And I agree with you on Dr. Fauci. I'm generally a fan of Dr. Fauci, but I was really frustrated in 2020 and 2021 saying, hey, we need to look at both of these origin hypotheses. And there were a whole lot of people in the media, in the government, in the scientific community who were saying, no, we should only look at this natural origins hypothesis, and that was wrong, and I'm glad things are opening up.
But you said last night when you were celebrating the book, basically what happened, right? You knew what happened. Well, tell us what happened.
Here's what I think. And what I said is it was early 2020, late January, early February of 2020, and I was sitting at my dining room table, and I was telling my partner, I said to her, look, I see what I'm reading in the newspapers and seeing on the news, and I'm looking at the evidence, and I'm seeing a different story from the evidence as what I'm hearing. So it seems to me the most likely thing that happened is that there were Chinese researchers who were secretly trying to develop a pan-coronavirus vaccine. Something went wrong. They didn't know what went wrong in the beginning, and in the early days when the local authorities found out, they thought, well, we're going to cover this up, which is what you do when you're in the Chinese Communist Party. Frankly, that's your job. And it'll never grow because most spillovers die out. And then when it grew, and then the national government stepped in, they had a choice. Do we say, hey, these guys screwed up locally, and now they need to be transparent and accountable, and then that's the end of the Chinese government? Or do you say, we're going to cover this up, that's what we do? And that's why they've done everything possible to prevent the investigation.
Yeah, they sure have. And what else did the CCP do? They stopped all flights leaving China, but they said, no problem. You want to go to Italy? Get on a flight. Go right to Italy right now. They had their Belt Road Initiative throughout Italy. So there were people who went directly from Wuhan, who had COVID, right to Italy. And that's why they were affected first, right?
It's true, and we just need to recognize that the world has changed. We had a story that let's all come together, and China is starting a new Cold War with us. If we don't recognize that, the world's going to be at risk.
All right, get the book, Superconvergence by Jamie Metzl. Jamie, congrats.
Thanks so much, Marie. You're the best.
Thanks so much. Good to see you, Jamie.